Have you ever wondered why some kids seem to just soak up new languages practically overnight, while others truly struggle with something as fundamental as reading? Or what actually makes teenagers tick? Why they sometimes make those wild decisions, but then show incredibly deep loyalty in their friendships? It's like watching this magnificent, complex organism grow and evolve right before your eyes and trying to understand its secret blueprint. Today, we're doing a deep dive into that very blueprint, the incredible journey of human development and learning. We've taken your curated stack of sources, articles, research, even some solved past papers, and our mission is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge to help you understand this astonishing process. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding not just what happens as we develop, but the fascinating how and why behind our growth, change, and adaptation across the entire lifespan. Get ready to connect some dots.
Exactly. We're going to unravel the scientific study of human development, from the very first moments of life right through adulthood. We'll be examining the physical changes, how our minds and thinking evolve, how we form incredibly complex relationships, and crucially, how we learn to manage our emotions. We'll also dissect the major theories that explain how we acquire knowledge and skills, and perhaps, most importantly, what this all means for truly supporting every learner. This is especially critical during those pivotal periods like early childhood and adolescence. Prepare for some genuine aha moments, because once you see these patterns, you really can't unsee them.
So let's kick things off by really unpacking this field. Developmental psychology. What is it at its core? Because I think a lot of people assume it's just about babies and toddlers, but you're telling us it's much, much broader than that, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's far more encompassing. At its heart, developmental psychology is the scientific study of how humans systematically change and sometimes, stay the same across their entire lifespan. From the moment of conception right through to old age, it's not just about children. It's about you at every single stage of your journey. It's about understanding those patterns of growth and transformation that define us all.
And what kinds of changes are we talking about here? Because development can mean so many things, can it?
Well, we usually break it down into several crucial domains. We look at physical development, how our bodies grow, our brains mature, our motor skills evolve, all that physical stuff. Then there's cognitive development. This is all about how our minds and thinking processes change how we learn to perceive, remember, problem solve, use language.
Okay, like learning to read, for instance.
Right. Exactly. Learning to read is pure cognitive growth. Then we also examine social development, how we form relationships, interact with others, navigate the complex social world, from forming early attachments as infants to managing friendships and relationships in adulthood, and finally, emotional development, how we understand, express, and control our feelings, learning empathy, regulating our responses to the world.
So managing frustration or showing joy, that kind of thing.
Precisely. It's a holistic view, really, looking at the whole person across their entire life.
That's a huge field, as you said. And it's important to distinguish it from something we often confuse it with, which is just growth. But what's the critical difference there?
Yeah, this is a crucial distinction, and one our sources really highlight. Growth refers specifically to quantitative physical increases, things you can measure,
Like height or weight.
Exactly. A child growing 5 centimeters in a year or gaining weight, it's about becoming bigger or more. Development, however, is a much richer qualitative concept. It's about improvement in skills, in behavior, in maturity. It's about how well or how complex something becomes.
Okay, so give me an example.
Well, think of it this way. A child grows taller, right? That's growth. But they develop the skill of tying their shoelaces.
Ah, right.
That shoelace example isn't just a physical change in hand size, though that's part of it. It's a qualitative leap in fine motor mastery, coordination, independence. That's development.
Got it. So when we look at this grand arc of development, are there certain periods that really stand out as being foundational? Why does early childhood, in particular, always seem to be highlighted as so incredibly important?
Yeah, early childhood, roughly from birth to around 6 or 7 years old, is honestly ground zero for so much of who we become. Our sources really underscore that it's absolutely critical, primarily due to the rapid and profound brain development happening then.
It's like the brain's big growth spurt.
Kind of, yeah. Think of a tiny acorn. The early conditions, the soil, the water, the sunlight, those largely determine the strength and shape of the oak it becomes. It's similar for humans. During these early years, billions of neural connections form and strengthen. They call it synaptic exuberance.
Exuberance, I like that.
It's like their brains are just bursting with connections, almost like a wild, dense forest growing. And every single experience, a lullaby, a loving touch, even a moment of stress or neglect acts like a gardener.
Deciding which paths get stronger.
Exactly. Deciding which pathways become superhighways and which ones get trimmed back. It's truly incredible how actively their environment sculpts their developing mind. This impacts cognitive, emotional, and social skills for life. What happens here literally builds the architecture of the brain for everything that follows.
That's a powerful image. The brain is a growing forest shaped by experience. And speaking of shaping, developmental psychology isn't a single settled idea, is it? Instead, it's framed by some really big fundamental questions, almost like philosophical debates that try to get at the heart of what makes us who we are. Let's dig into these. First up, the classic nature versus nurture. It sounds like a battle, but it's more nuanced, right?
Oh, definitely more of a dance than a battle. This classic debate asks, are we primarily a product of our genes, that's nature, or our environment and experiences, which is nurture? The real aha moment here isn't just that it's a mix, but, well, someone once put it as nature loads the gun and nurture pulls the trigger.
Ooh, interesting metaphor.
Yeah. Genes aren't destiny. They provide a range of possibilities, maybe a predisposition. But it's our environment, our nutrition, our education, relationships, culture that often determines which of those possibilities actually manifest.
So like height, genes play a role, but so does food.
Exactly. Height is influenced by inherited genes and nutrition. Both are absolutely critical. It's a dynamic, constant interplay that shapes who we become, never just one or the other.
That's a great way to put it. So not either, but both hand. Okay, next we have stability versus change. Do we essentially stay the same person we were as a child, or do we fundamentally evolve over time?
Right. This question considers whether our personality traits and behaviors remain consistent and predictable over time, suggesting stability, or if they evolve and transform significantly based on our experiences, indicating change.
So, like, is a shy kid always going to be a shy adult?
That's the kind of question it tackles. Think of an introverted toddler. Do they remain introverted for life, consistently preferring quiet activities? Or can they, through certain social experiences or life events, become a more outgoing adult? Developmental psychologists are keenly interested in understanding which aspects of ourselves remain enduring, our core maybe, and which are more open to transformation throughout life. It's about our essence versus our adaptability.
And then there's continuity versus discontinuity. You know, when I look at a child growing, sometimes it feels like they're just gradually building on what they already know, almost like a smooth, steady incline. Other times, though, it's like they hit a completely new stage and suddenly they're thinking in a totally different way. Is development smooth? Or does it happen in big, distinct jumps?
You've hit on the core of that debate perfectly. Is development like steadily climbing a gently sloping ramp that's continuity where skills and knowledge accumulate gradually? Or does it occur in distinct, separate stages with abrupt, qualitative changes, like climbing a staircase with clear, defined steps, which is discontinuity?
Okay, so which is it? Or is it both?
Well, different theories emphasize different aspects. Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development, for instance, strongly argues for discontinuity. He proposed specific, distinct stages of thinking children move through.
Right, like steps on a staircase.
Exactly. Language acquisition, on the other hand, often appears more continuous, with vocabulary and grammatical complexity gradually increasing, much like that ramp you mentioned. So both perspectives offer valuable insights into how we develop. It might depend on what aspect of development you're looking at.
So we've got nature, nurture, stability, change, continuity, discontinuity, all focused somewhat internally. But what about the broader context? There's also the debate of universal versus context-specific development. Are we all on the same global developmental path, or does culture change things dramatically?
That's right. This asks if development follows the same predictable path for everyone across diverse cultures and environments, suggesting a universal pattern.
Like learning to walk. Most babies do that in a similar sequence, right?
Generally, yes. How most babies babble before they speak or crawl before they walk, those seem quite universal. Or is development heavily shaped by unique cultural values, historical events, and social factors, making it context-specific?
So things like when kids start school, maybe.
Exactly. The age at which children achieve certain academic milestones or even develop a strong sense of independence can be very context-specific. It's heavily influenced by educational systems, family structures, societal expectations. Our culture shapes so much of our journey.
And finally, one more big debate. Are we active participants in our own development, or are we more like passengers along for the ride? That's active versus passive development.
This explores whether individuals are active agents, shaping their own development by making choices, seeking out experiences, influencing their environment, actively building their own lives. Or are they primarily passive recipients, simply reacting to external forces, like a piece of clay being molded by the environment?
So do we just react to rewards and punishments, or do we actually choose our friends or interests?
Exactly. Do we actively choose interests, select friends, pursue goals, and thereby shape our own skills and personality? Most modern theories lean towards a more active role, recognizing the incredible agency individuals have in their own lives, even from a young age.
It really sounds like it's a dynamic interplay of all these dimensions. It's never just one factor, which is why we're all so incredibly complex as human beings.
Precisely. These aren't either choices, but rather dimensions along which theories and individuals can be understood. Thinking about these debates helps us appreciate the intricate dance of genetic predispositions, environmental factors, personal choices, cultural influences, everything that makes each individual unique. And it provides a crucial framework for understanding their learning journeys.
Okay, so with those fundamental debates as our backdrop, let's map out the incredible journey itself. Our sources really break down human development into clear, discernible stages. And it starts even before birth, a period that's often overlooked, but you're saying is surprisingly foundational.
Correct. Prenatal development, the period before birth, is surprisingly complex and absolutely crucial. It's where the groundwork for everything else is laid, unfolding in three distinct stages. First, the germinal stage, which lasts about 2 weeks from conception. This is where the fertilized egg, the zygote, starts dividing rapidly.
It's multiplying cells like crazy.
Exactly. And it travels down to implant itself miraculously in the uterine wall. It's a biological marvel, often happening before anyone even knows pregnancy has begun. Next is the embryonic stage, from about 2 to 8 weeks post-conception. This is a period of incredibly rapid organ formation, organogenesis.
So all the major systems start developing.
Yes, the heart starts beating, the brain starts forming, limbs appear. All the major organs and body systems begin to develop. This makes it a highly sensitive period for teratogens.
Teratogens. Those are harmful environmental agents, right? Like alcohol or certain drugs.
Precisely. Things that can interfere with normal development. If the embryo is exposed during this critical window, they can cause severe developmental abnormalities. It's a time of immense vulnerability. Finally, we have the fetal stage, stretching from about 8 weeks until birth. This is primarily a period of extensive growth and the refinement of those structures that formed earlier.
So getting bigger and stronger.
Yeah, organs mature, the fetus gains significant weight, and sensory development really takes off. The fetus starts responding to sounds, maybe even light through the womb wall, getting ready for life outside.
And then we're born, and the postnatal stages begin. These are the ones we're probably more familiar with, though maybe we forget the incredible nuances and distinct characteristics of each. Let's quickly walk through them.
Indeed, each postnatal stage presents its own unique developmental tasks and challenges. We start with infancy, from birth to about 2 years old. This is a period of astonishingly rapid physical growth and motor skill development. Think from reflexively grasping to purposefully crawling and eventually walking.
Huge changes in just 2 years.
Huge. And crucially, it's also the time for the foundational formation of attachment, where infants form deep emotional bonds with their primary caregivers. These early bonds profoundly influence their social emotional development for years to come. Then comes early childhood, roughly 2 to 6 years. Marked by explosive language development, kids go from single words to complex sentences at an incredible pace.
The Y stage.
It's definitely the Y stage, and it's characterized by imaginative play, which is vital for cognitive and social growth, and the beginnings of more sophisticated social interactions with peers. Learning to share, cooperate, sort of.
Sort of being the key word there sometimes. Then middle childhood, 6 to 12 years.
Right, the school-aged years. Here, children's logical thinking abilities truly emerge. They start to understand concrete rules and apply logic to specific, observable situations. Formal school learning becomes central. Focus shifts significantly to academic skills and knowledge acquisition, reading, writing, arithmetic.
Okay, and then adolescence, the big transition.
Adolescence, roughly 12 to 18 years. This is that pivotal, often turbulent transitional stage between childhood and adulthood. It's defined by the onset of puberty.
Hormones, growth spurts.
All of that leading to sexual maturity. Cognitively, it's when the capacity for abstract reasoning develops, allowing for more complex hypothetical thought. And emotionally, there's intense identity formation, that search for self.
Then we hit adulthood, starting with early adulthood, maybe 18 to 40.
Yes, this period typically focuses on establishing a career, forming intimate relationships, and for many, family formation and raising children. It's a time of exploring possibilities, solidifying independence, making significant life choices. Following that is middle adulthood, roughly 40 to 65, often a period of relative stability in career and family life, but also a time for midlife adjustments, reflection on accomplishments, reevaluating goals.
Maybe caring for aging parents, kids leaving home, sandwich generation sometime.
Exactly. And finally, late adulthood, 65 years and older, characterized by reflection on one's life, coping with physical aging and potential health challenges, adapting to new social roles like retirement. While there can be some cognitive decline for some, it's often balanced by accumulated wisdom and experience. It's another distinct phase of life.
That's a great overview of the whole journey. Now, you mentioned early childhood earlier, ages roughly 2 to 6, and our sources really emphasize its profound importance. Why is this period so pivotal? You call it ground zero. It sounds like it's truly the bedrock of human development.
It absolutely is the bedrock. This period is profoundly important because it truly lays the groundwork for almost all future learning, behavior, and well-being. It's a time of explosive growth and honestly immense vulnerability where experiences have disproportionate long-term impacts on an individual's trajectory.
So what's happening specifically?
Well, firstly, as we touched on, the rapid brain development is just astonishing. Billions of neural connections are forming, pruning, strengthening. That synaptic exuberance we mentioned.
Yeah, the busy forest.
Right. It means that literally every experience, a story read aloud, a harsh word, a supportive hug, neglect, trauma, directly shapes the brain's architecture. This architecture, in turn, impacts cognitive, emotional, social skills for life.
So bad experiences early on can have really lasting effects.
Severe, lasting consequences on brain development and function. It literally alters the brain's very wiring. It underscores the importance of positive, nurturing environments. Secondly, this period is the foundation for learning itself. Essential cognitive skills like language acquisition, early literacy, recognizing letters, understanding stories, numeracy, basic problem solving. They develop at an astonishing pace.
So it's not just about ABCs, it's about learning how to learn.
Exactly. A stimulating environment rich in interactions and learning opportunities isn't just about teaching facts, it's about setting children up for academic success by teaching them how to learn and fostering a lifelong curiosity. It's where they learn to be learners. Thirdly, we see the rapid emergence of social and emotional skills. This is absolutely crucial for developing emotional regulation.
And managing those big feelings like tantrums.
Yes, learning to manage big feelings like anger or frustration, and developing empathy, understanding others' feelings. Pro-social behaviors like sharing and cooperating also blossoms here, hopefully. And the secure attachments formed with caregivers provide a vital sense of safety and trust, which is essential for all future social development and relationships. Without these foundational skills, navigating the world becomes incredibly challenging.
Okay, brain development, learning foundations, social emotional skills.
Yeah.
What else?
Fourthly, it's where identity and autonomy begin to truly form. Children start to develop a sense of self, me, mine, and assert their independence. Me do it.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
They explore their environment with boundless curiosity, ask endless why questions, test boundaries. Positive experiences here where children feel capable and supported, foster a healthy self-concept and a secure sense of self-worth. They learn, I can do this, I am capable. And finally, it's recognized as a critical period for language acquisition. While language continues to develop, this is a unique window for acquiring the foundational elements, sounds, grammar, vocabulary, with remarkable ease.
So talking to kids, reading to them is super important then.
Absolutely essential. Rich language environments, filled with conversations, stories, new words, are vital for strong communication skills. And those skills are fundamental not just for social interaction, but for all cognitive growth and later academic success.
So the big takeaway here really is that investing in these early years truly is investing in a lifetime for the individual and, well, for society too. It's not just about playtime. It's about building a human being.
Absolutely. The skills and experiences gained or tragically missed in early childhood reverberate throughout an individual's entire life. The quality of early care and education has profound long-term impacts on health, well-being, even economic productivity later on. It's a time of immense potential, and society benefits immensely from nurturing this foundational stage. It truly is the launch pad for life.
So if early childhood is the launch pad, then adolescence, which our sources describe as this period of storm and strain, Feels like the journey to the moon, maybe a bumpy one. Moving from those foundational years, we hit this intense, rapid stage. Why is adolescence, roughly ages 12–18, so significant? What makes it such a transformational phase? It sometimes feels chaotic, but ultimately shapes us so profoundly.
It's an excellent analogy, actually, because adolescence is a rocket-fueled transitional stage between childhood and adulthood. It's marked by intense and rapid changes across all developmental domains: physical, cognitive, emotional, social. It's a period of profound rewiring and reorganizing in the brain, absolutely critical for identity formation and the development of independence.
Let's break those down.
Yeah.
Physically, we know about puberty.
Right. Physically, it's defined by puberty, leading to sexual maturity and those significant growth spurts. These rapid bodily changes driven by hormones can be both exhilarating and, let's be honest, pretty disorienting for adolescents as they adapt to their changing bodies. It's a lot to handle.
Okay, and cognitively, how does their thinking change?
Cognitively, this is where things get really fascinating. Adolescents generally move from concrete thinking, tied to what is directly observable, to formal operational thought, as Piaget described it.
Formal operational, meaning they can think more abstractly.
Exactly. It enables abstract reasoning, allowing them to think about hypothetical situations, ponder complex philosophical ideas like justice or morality, and engage in logical, systematic problem solving. And crucially, they develop metacognition.
Metacognition, thinking about thinking.
Precisely. It's like having a little supervisor inside your head, watching how you learn, how you solve problems, even helping you plan your thoughts. It's the superpower that lets you strategically tackle a complex math problem or map out an essay before you even write a word. Huge cognitive leap.
Okay, physical, cognitive.
Emotion.
This is where the storm and strain idea often comes from, right? Mood swings.
Yeah, increased emotional intensity and volatility are definitely hallmarks, often leading to mood swings. This is partly due to hormonal shifts and, importantly, the uneven development of different brain regions. The emotional parts, the limbic system, often develop faster than the prefrontal cortex, which handles impulse control and judgment.
Ah, so the gas pedal is down before the brakes are fully working.
That's a great way to put it. And this period is also intensely driven by identity exploration, a deep search for their values, beliefs, goals, who they are as individuals. Who am I is the big question. Self-esteem and self-concept are heavily in flux, very sensitive to social feedback and personal experiences, makes them wonderfully open but also quite vulnerable.
And socially, friends become super important, right?
Paramount. Socially, peer relationships become absolutely central. The influence of friends and peer groups significantly increases, often temporarily surpassing parental influence in day-to-day choices, styles, music.
Definitely remember that.
And there's a growing push for autonomy and independence from parental control, though family still provides crucial emotional support and guidance, even if it feels less direct or maybe less appreciated at the time. They still need that anchor.
So this search for self, this identity formation, you're saying that's really the main event for adolescence. It's what many of us remember most vividly, trying on different versions of ourselves.
It is indeed the central psychosocial task of adolescence, according to Erik Erikson. It's where adolescents actively explore their values, beliefs, and goals to build a coherent self-identity. This exploration is why you see them experimenting with different styles of clothing, trying out various interests, listening to diverse music, joining different social groups.
Testing the waters.
Exactly. They're actively testing out different facets of who they might be. This period is truly a workshop for the self, trying on different roles to see what fits and feels authentic to them. It's essential work, even if messy sometimes.
And moral development also gets a significant boost during this period, moving beyond just following rules because you'll get caught, to something more complex.
Absolutely. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development provides a fantastic framework for understanding this shift. Adolescents typically move beyond pre-conventional reasoning, where actions are judged based on simple reward and punishment avoidance, like a young child might think.
Don't steal the cookie because mom will yell.
Right. They move towards conventional reasoning. At this stage, they begin to adhere to social rules and norms, maybe for approval from others or because they understand it maintains social order. Good boys, girls follow the rules. Ideally, some may even begin to develop post-conventional reasoning, where they follow abstract ethical principles, justice, fairness, human rights, even if those principles conflict with existing laws or societal norms.
So thinking more deeply about why something is right or wrong,
Exactly. It reflects deep critical thinking about justice and fairness, like understanding why a rule exists and maybe even questioning it if it seems unjust based on a higher principle. It's a profound journey in how we judge right and wrong.
With all these rapid changes, physical, cognitive, emotional, moral, and this intense exploration, what are some of the common challenges that pop up during this intense period? It sounds like a lot for any young person to navigate.
Oh, many challenges indeed. Adolescents face significant potential issues, including identity confusion, if they struggle to form that coherent sense of self. There's often intense peer pressure, leading to difficult decisions about conformity, sometimes acting against their better judgment just to fit in.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Emotional instability and mental health issues like anxiety, depression, significant mood swings are also more prevalent during this time. It's a vulnerable period. Risk-taking behaviors are common, driven partly by that developing prefrontal cortex not yet fully controlling the heightened reward sensitivity of other brain areas. Sensation-seeking can be high.
The gas pedal again.
Exactly. There's also academic stress and sometimes significant conflict with authority figures. Parents, teachers, as they push for greater autonomy. It's a time of testing boundaries.
That makes perfect sense. How do those emotions and the social context specifically influence their decision-making during this time? Because we often see decisions that seem, well, to an adult, quite irrational or impulsive. It's almost like they're operating on a different logic sometimes.
You're right, it's not always logical by adult standards, and their decisions are heavily influenced by both internal emotions and external social contexts. As we mentioned, the limbic system, especially the amygdala, involved in emotion and reward processing, develops earlier and is highly active. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for impulse control, planning, risk assessment, is still maturing, well into the early 20s, actually.
So there's a real biological mismatch happening.
There really is. This developmental imbalance makes them prone to emotion-based decisions. The emotional accelerator is fully on, but the brake pedal is still, let's say, under construction. Heightened emotional arousal, excitement, anger, anxiety can easily override logical thinking, leading to impulsive actions, engaging in risky behaviors for thrills, lashing out without considering consequences.
The social side, peer pressure.
Hugely influential. Peer influence is incredibly powerful, fueled by a deep desire for acceptance and a pervasive fear of rejection. Adolescents are highly sensitive to social norms and what their friends are doing.
And social media must amplify that like crazy now.
Oh, absolutely. Social media exacerbates this, with decisions about self-presentation, online behavior, even real-world actions often swayed by the desire for likes or the fear of missing out FOMO. They might take risks or make choices for social approval, even if it goes against their better judgment. Also, that strong desire for autonomy can lead to decisions primarily meant to assert independence, even if those choices aren't entirely rational. They're trying on their adult self, but without all the adult brain equipment fully installed yet.
Okay, so we sketched out the incredible timeline of human growth, the when. But beyond when things happen, there's the equally vital question of how we actually acquire all this knowledge and these skills. Let's shift gears and get into the learning theories. Let's start with a really foundational school of thought, the behaviorists. What was their big idea about how we learn, and why was it such a game changer back then? It seems almost simplistic now, but it was revolutionary, wasn't it?
It really was revolutionary for its time. The behaviorist approach is quite distinct in its focus. It centers entirely on observable behavior, what you can see and measure. For them, learning is fundamentally viewed as a change in behavior, acquired through interaction with the environment, often via conditioning.
So no thinking, no feelings, just actions and reactions.
Pretty much. Crucially, behaviorists largely ignored internal mental processes like thoughts, feelings, or intentions. For them, if you couldn't see it, it wasn't scientific, wasn't worth studying. It's all about stimulus and response. It was revolutionary because it offered a scientific, seemingly objective, measurable way to study learning. Key proponents include Pavlov with his dogs, Watson, and importantly for education, B.F. Skinner.
Ah, Skinner. Operant conditioning, right? Rewards and punishments.
Exactly. Skinner's operant conditioning is a cornerstone. The big idea is that learning occurs when the strength of a behavior is modified by its consequences. What happens after you do something determines if you do it again. Think about it. If you get a reward for doing something, you're more likely to do it again. That's called positive reinforcement.
Like praise for a good answer in class, or a treat for a dog who sits.
Perfect examples. And if something unpleasant goes away when you do something, that also makes you repeat the behavior that's negative reinforcement. It's not punishment, it's removing something bad.
Like a car's annoying seatbelt alarm stopping only when you buckle up.
Precisely. You learn to buckle up quickly to make the unpleasant noise stop. It's about shaping behavior through consequences, and it's happening all around us, often without us even noticing. On the flip side, to weaken or decrease a behavior, behaviorists use punishment if you add something unpleasant or aversive.
Like detention for misbehaving.
Right, that's positive punishment, adding something bad. And if you take away something desirable,
Losing screen time for not doing chores.
that's negative punishment, removing something good, the core insight. Our actions are largely driven by what happens after them. Consequences matter.
And how did this translate into education? I imagine it had a big impact.
Widespread impact. We see Skinner's ideas in things like token economies in classrooms, where students earn points or stars for desired behaviors, which they can later exchange for rewards. Structured drills and providing immediate feedback also draw heavily on these principles, reinforce the correct response quickly. It's also about breaking down complex behaviors into smaller steps and reinforcing each successive approximation until the full behavior is learned.
Like teaching a child to write, praising, holding the pencil, then making marks, then letters.
Exactly that process.
Yeah.
Shaping behavior step by step through reinforcement. It's very structured.
So the early behaviorists were all about external consequences shaping our actions. But then Edward C. Tolman came along, and he started to suggest that maybe there was something more going on inside the learner's mind. A bit more intention involved. He wasn't a strict behaviorist.
Exactly. Tolman was a really pivotal figure because he started to peek into that black box of the mind that the stricter behaviorists ignored. He proposed purposive behaviorism. He argued that learning isn't just a series of automatic stimulus-response connections, but it's fundamentally goal-directed. He believed we acquire cognitive maps.
Cognitive maps, like mental maps of our surroundings.
Yes, mental representations of our environment or even of a task. For Tolman, behavior isn't just automatic. It's purposeful, intentional, organized around achieving a specific goal, even if those purposes aren't immediately observable from the outside. He brought cognition back into the picture, somewhat. His theory brought in key concepts like latent learning.
Latent learning, meaning hidden learning.
Kind of, yeah. It's learning that happens without any immediate reinforcement or any observable change in behavior at the time. It only shows up later when there's a reason, a motivation to use it.
Like maybe driving the same route every day and learning where things are, even if you don't need that info until later.
Perfect example. You unconsciously learn the route, building a cognitive map, but you don't demonstrate that learning until you actually need to navigate to a specific place on that route. Those cognitive maps are like the mental GPS system you build for navigating your world, whether it's a physical space like a maze for his rats, or the steps needed for a complex project for a student. Tolman also talked about confirmation versus reinforcement, suggesting we learn by confirming our mental hypotheses about the world, not just by being rewarded. It makes learning more active, more purpose-driven.
So how would Tolman's ideas change teaching compared to Skinner's?
Well, the educational implications shift subtly, but importantly. Instead of just rewarding correct answers, Tolman's ideas encourage teachers to clearly communicate the why behind learning activities, the purpose, the bigger picture. Help students see the goal. It promotes exploration and discovery, understanding that students are building these internal maps, even if they're not immediately showing it through behavior. Using things like concept maps in class or focusing on genuine problem solving where students figure things out, rather than just rote memorization, those align perfectly with helping students build those internal representations of knowledge. It's a step towards cognitivism.
That's a fascinating bridge from pure behaviorism. So Tolman opened the door a crack. But you're saying cognitive theories really threw it wide open, putting internal mental processes like thinking and memory right at the center stage. This is a huge shift, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely monumental. Cognitive theories emphasize all those internal mental processes that behaviorists deliberately ignored. Thinking, memory, perception, attention, language, problem solving, information processing, everything happening inside the head. Here, learners aren't just passive recipients of stimuli like Skinner might suggest. They are seen as active constructors of knowledge, constantly interpreting, organizing, connecting, and making sense of the world around them. It's about how we process information.
And the big name here, especially in development, is Jean Piaget, right?
Absolutely. Piaget is foundational with his cognitive development theory. He believed children are like little scientists, actively constructing their understanding of the world through their interactions with it. He saw them moving through a series of distinct, universal developmental stages.
And he gave us some really key concepts for understanding that construction process.
Yes, some really powerful concepts that are still influential today. First, schema or schemas. These are like mental files or blueprints, categories we use to organize knowledge. When you first learn about dogs, you create a schema for it. 4 legs, fur, barks, etc. Then, assimilation. This is when you integrate new experiences into those existing schemas.
Like seeing a different breed of dog and still recognizing it as a dog.
Exactly. Or maybe a child sees a cat for the first time, notices it has 4 legs and fur, and assimilates it into their doggy schema, calling it a doggy.
Ah, okay. But that's not quite right.
Right. So that leads to accommodation. This is when you adjust your existing schemas or create entirely new ones because a new experience doesn't quite fit the old framework. So the child eventually learns that doggy is a specific animal, and they accommodate their understanding, creating a new schema for cat as a separate category.
Makes sense. It's like updating your mental files.
Precisely. And the driving force behind this is equilibration. This is the ongoing process of balancing assimilation and accommodation, resolving those little mental conflicts or discrepancies to achieve cognitive stability. It's our natural drive to make sense of the world, to have things fit together mentally.
And Piaget proposed distinct stages everyone goes through.
Yes, 4 major stages, each qualitatively different in how children think. Sensorimotor, birth to 2 years. Pre-operational, 2 to 7 years. Concrete operational, 7 to 11 years. And formal operational, 11 years and up. The educational implications are huge. Designing activities that genuinely challenge students' current thinking, tailoring instruction to a child's cognitive level, not too simple, not too complex, and promoting active problem solving where students can discover concepts themselves rather than just being told the answers, respecting the stage they're in.
So Piaget showed us how our mental structures for thinking evolve. What about how we perceive and understand whole concepts, like seeing the bigger picture? That brings us to Gestalt psychology and figures like Max Wertheimer. What was their contribution?
Indeed. Max Wertheimer, a key figure in Gestalt psychology, focused on perception and insight, emphasizing that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Our minds naturally try to organize sensory information into meaningful wholes or patterns.
Gestalt means form or shape in German.
Right, exactly. Wertheimer is known for studying the 5 phenomenon. That's the perception of apparent movement from a sequence of static images shown rapidly.
Like flip books.
Yeah.
Or movies.
Precisely. It's the fundamental principle behind animation and movies. It shows our brain actively constructs the perception of movement. It doesn't just passively receive static images. Our brains actively organize input into meaningful wholes. Wertheimer also introduced the idea of productive thinking and problem solving. This isn't just trial and error. It involves genuine insight, that aha moment where you suddenly see the solution because you understand the problem's underlying structure, how the parts relate to the whole.
So how does this Gestalt idea apply to teaching?
The educational takeaway from Wertheimer and Gestalt psychology is to promote insight-based learning, moving beyond just rote memorization of disconnected facts. It encourages teachers to design problem-solving activities that help students grasp the whole problem or concept, seeing the connections and underlying principles rather than just fragmented pieces of information. Help them see the forest, not just the trees.
These cognitive theories, Piaget, Gestalt, they really changed the game in how we thought about learning and the mind. What would you say are their biggest contributions overall, and maybe some of the main criticisms they face?
Their contributions are immense, truly. They profoundly shifted the focus from purely external behaviors to internal mental processes, giving us a much richer, more complex understanding of learning. Piaget's work offered clear stage theories, emphasizing children as active, curious learners, not just passive sponges. They highlighted the crucial importance of prior knowledge and existing mental schemas in how we process new information. Concepts like metacognition, that ability to monitor and regulate our own thinking, became central, empowering learners to take more control.
So they really put the learner back in the driver's seat.
In many ways, yes. They also strongly advocated for active learning, discovery learning, and problem-solving methodologies, which form the basis for much of modern educational design, moving away from purely passive, lecture-based teaching. However, they also face valid criticisms. Piaget, for instance, is sometimes criticized for potentially underestimating children's abilities, especially when tasks are simplified or made more culturally familiar. His stages might not be as rigid or universal as he first proposed.
So culture might affect the stages.
Exactly. There's debate about the universality, with some arguing cultural factors can significantly influence the timing or even sequence of cognitive development. Cognitive theories can also sometimes be seen as overemphasizing rationality and logical thought, perhaps at the expense of the significant roles played by emotions, motivation, social interaction, and culture in learning.
And it's hard to actually see thinking, right?
That's the other challenge. The difficulty in directly observing and measuring those internal mental processes remains. We often have to rely on inferences based on behavior or self-report, which isn't always straightforward.
Okay, so if behaviorism is about external control pulling the strings, and cognitivism is about the internal mental machinery processing information, humanism seems to put something else entirely at its core. The individual learner themselves, their potential, their feelings, their growth. It sounds incredibly student-friendly, almost philosophical.
It absolutely is student-friendly, and it does have philosophical roots. Humanistic learning theory represents another significant shift in focus. It emphasizes an individual's inherent potential for growth, their drive towards self-actualization, and their fundamental freedom and agency. It sees learners as active, self-directed, and intrinsically motivated.
Intrinsically motivated, meaning they learn because they want to, from the inside out, not just for a grade or a reward.
Precisely. Learning comes from an internal desire, curiosity, or need for personal growth, not just external pressures. This approach prioritizes emotional well-being, personal relevance, and the whole child, their feelings, needs, interests over just cognitive outcomes or standardized scores. It's all about helping you become the best, most fulfilled you that you can be.
And who are the key figures here? Maslow comes to mind.
Definitely. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a cornerstone of this approach. Even if not strictly a learning theory itself, it has huge implications for learning. Maslow theorized that learning and self-actualization reaching one's full potential are only really possible when more basic human needs are met first.
Right, the pyramid.
Yeah.
You need food and safety before you can worry about higher goals.
Exactly. Those needs progress from physiological, food, water, shelter, sleep, to safety, security, stability, freedom from fear, then to social needs, love, belonging, connection with others, and then to esteem needs, self-worth, accomplishment, recognition. Only when these are reasonably satisfied can individuals focus effectively on learning and growth, ultimately striving for self-actualization at the top.
So a hungry or scared child can't learn effectively. Seems obvious, but crucial.
Crucial. You can't learn algebra if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from or if you feel unsafe or excluded in the classroom. The humanistic approach reminds us to consider the whole person and their basic needs. Carl Rogers is another key figure. He strongly advocated for student-centered learning.
Student-centered, meaning the student is in charge.
Not necessarily in charge of everything, but an active participant in their own learning process. Rogers believed in creating educational environments that are supportive, empathetic, and genuine. He emphasized the teacher providing unconditional positive regard, a non-judgmental, accepting, supportive stance towards the learner, valuing them as a person regardless of their performance.
So creating a really safe space for learning.
Exactly, and encouraging students to have a say, for example, by letting them choose their own project topics. This allows them to pursue interests that are personally relevant and meaningful, fostering deeper engagement and ownership of their learning. It's about facilitating self-discovery within a safe, nurturing relationship. So the key concepts here are intrinsic motivation, the drive towards self-actualization, personal growth, learner autonomy, and the importance of emotions and feelings in the learning process.
And the educational implications seem pretty clear then. Focus on the student.
Yes. Creating student-centered, supportive, and motivating classroom environments, promoting self-directed learning where students have choices and agency, focusing on the whole child's intellectual, emotional, and social development, and encouraging self-evaluation and reflection as integral parts of the learning process, not just external judgment.
It sounds wonderful, really positive. But what are the practical strengths and maybe limitations of humanism when we try to apply it in the real-world classroom, with all its pressures and constraints?
It offers profound benefits when implemented well. Strengths definitely include fostering genuine intrinsic motivation as learning aligns with personal interests and goals. It significantly enhances self-esteem and develops learner autonomy, empowering students to take ownership. Humanism helps create a much more positive classroom climate, characterized by empathy, trust, and mutual respect. and it actively encourages creativity and critical thinking by allowing for open exploration and valuing individual perspectives.
But the limitations, I can imagine, might be hard to standardize.
That's a key challenge. Limitations can arise with standardization and external assessment, as the focus is on individual growth paths rather than uniform outcomes that are easily measured by standardized tests. Highly unstructured, purely student-led approaches might lack the necessary structure or guidance for some learners, particularly those who thrive with clearer direction or who have specific learning needs that require more explicit instruction.
Could students miss out on important content if they only follow their interests?
That's a potential risk. There's a concern about incomplete content coverage if student interests too heavily dictate the curriculum, potentially leaving gaps in foundational knowledge or skills required by external standards. Furthermore, it places significantly increased demands on teachers. They need to be highly skilled, empathetic facilitators, adept at understanding individual needs and fostering self-discovery rather than just content deliverers. That can be very challenging, especially in large classroom settings with diverse student populations and limited resources. It requires a different kind of teaching expertise.
Okay, so we've gone from external controls, behaviorism, to internal mental processes, cognitivism, and then to the whole self-actualizing individual humanism. And bridging some of these ideas, or maybe offering another powerful lens, are the constructivist theories. The core idea here seems to be that learners actively build or construct their own understanding. How does this approach fit into the bigger picture?
That's right. Constructivism is a major force in modern education theory, and it posits that learners don't just passively receive information. They actively construct knowledge and meaning through their experiences and subsequent reflection on those experiences. Learning is an active process of building understanding. It has two main branches, which share the core idea of active construction but differ in emphasis. The first, which we already touched upon when discussing Piaget, is sometimes called rational constructivism or cognitive constructivism. This focuses primarily on the individual's cognitive processes.
Piaget schemas, assimilation, accommodation, that individual building process.
Exactly. Learners use their existing mental structures, logical thinking, and problem-solving abilities to build knowledge individually, interacting with the physical world. Think of that child discovering gravity by repeatedly dropping objects and observing the outcome, figuring it out internally. It's a very internal, personal process of discovery driven by cognitive equilibration. The second, and a hugely influential complement, is Vygotsky's social constructivism.
Vygotsky. His name comes up a lot. What's his angle?
Vygotsky's perspective emphatically emphasizes that cognitive development and learning happens primarily through social interaction, language, and the cultural context in which learning takes place. For Vygotsky, learning is less about an individual building knowledge in isolation in their own head, and much more about learning together with others and with the guidance of more knowledgeable people. It's about how our social world fundamentally shapes our mental world. Learning is social first, then individual.
That's a really different emphasis from Piaget. What are Vygotsky's key ideas?
Vygotsky introduced several transformative concepts that are incredibly practical for teaching. First, the zone of proximal development, ZPD. This is the crucial sweet spot for learning.
The sweet spot.
Yeah, it's the gap, the zone between what a learner can currently do independently and what they can achieve with the guidance and collaboration of a more knowledgeable other. It's where optimal learning happens, not too easy, boring, not too hard, frustrating, but just enough challenge with the right support. Second, the more knowledgeable other, MKO. This is simply any individual. It could be a teacher, a parent, a more capable peer, or even technology like a helpful app that has a better understanding or higher skill level than the learner regarding a particular task or concept. They are the guide within the ZPD. Third, scaffolding. This is the temporary support provided by the MKO to help a learner successfully navigate their ZPD and complete a task they couldn't do alone.
Like training wheels on a bike. Or hints from a teacher.
Exactly like that. This support is gradually withdrawn, faded out as the learner's proficiency increases, much like physical scaffolding is removed from a building once it can stand on its own. Think of a teacher helping a child solve a complex math problem by breaking it down, providing prompts, modeling steps, then letting the child take over more and more as they gain competence. Vygotsky also heavily emphasized the critical role of language and culture. He believed language isn't just for communication, it's the most important psychological tool for thinking. We use language to mediate our thoughts, plan actions, and internalize knowledge from social interactions. Talking things through helps us understand.
So internal speech, that inner voice, comes from social speech.
Essentially, yes. And culture, for Vygotsky, fundamentally shapes not only what we learn, but how we learn by providing the specific tools like language, number systems, technology, and practices for thinking and problem solving. Cognition is culturally situated.
So if we strip it down, what's the core essential difference between Piaget's individual constructivism and Vygotsky's social constructivism then? They both see learners as active.
Right. Great question. Yes, both agree learners are active constructors of knowledge. The fundamental difference lies in the primary engine or source of that active construction. Piaget focused heavily on the individual's internal cognitive stages and their independent exploration and discovery of the world. Development drives learning. Vygotsky, on the other hand, centered on the profound, indispensable role of social interaction, language, and cultural context in driving cognitive development. Learning pulls development forward. For Vygotsky, learning is fundamentally a social process first, which then becomes internalized by the individual.
So individual discovery versus social co-construction.
That's a good way to summarize the core difference and emphasis, yeah. Both offer incredibly valuable insights for educators.
Okay, we've talked a lot about how we learn, the internal processes, the social interactions. But beyond that, there's also the fundamental question of where we learn and the many, many layers of influence around us that shape our development. Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory seems perfectly designed to capture that complexity, reminding us that no one develops in a vacuum.
This theory, Urie Bronfenbrenner's work, is incredibly powerful because it provides a framework for understanding how development is profoundly influenced not just by individual experiences or immediate settings, but by multiple nested environmental systems that constantly interact with each other and with the developing person.
Nested systems.
Yeah.
Like those Russian nesting dolls.
Exactly like Russian nesting dolls. It's a fantastic visual. It's a constant reminder that it's not just about the individual in isolation. It's about their entire world, from the most immediate interactions to the broadest cultural forces, all influencing each other. Bronfenbrenner identified 5 interconnected environmental systems, each impacting development. Innermost is the microsystem. This is your immediate environment where you have direct face-to-face interactions, your family, your school classroom, your peer group, maybe your church or neighborhood playground. These are the settings where the most direct influences on development occur day to day. Next layer out is the mesosystem. This consists of the interactions and relationships between the different parts of your microsystem.
So not just the family or the school, but how they connect.
Precisely. How your parents' involvement affects your school performance, or how your home life influences your friendships, or the connection between your peer group and your family. The quality and consistency of these connections between microsystems matter immensely. Then comes the exosystem. This includes external contexts or social settings that indirectly affect you, even if you're not an active participant in them yourself.
How does that work? Give me an example.
Think about your parents' workplace. Their policies, their work hours, their stress levels. These can significantly impact family life and therefore indirectly affect the child's development, even though the child never sets foot in the workplace. Other examples include community resources like local libraries, healthcare services, or school board decisions. These influence your world, but often without your direct interaction. The ripple effects are real. The next layer is the macrosystem. This is the broadest level, encompassing the larger cultural values, laws, customs, belief systems, and economic and political systems of the society in which you live.
So the overall culture in society.
Yes. These overarching beliefs and ideologies about education, gender roles, individualism versus collectivism, poverty shape all the other systems nested within it. Cultural attitudes filter down, shaping expectations and opportunities. And finally, Bronfenbrenner added the chronosystem. This isn't a layer like the others, but rather it encompasses the dimension of time.
Time. How does that fit in?
It refers to the patterning of environmental events and transitions over your life course, as well as broader socio-historical circumstances. It captures changes over time, both within the individual, like puberty, and in their environment, like a parent losing a job, moving house, divorce, or even major historical events like a war, economic depression, or a pandemic. Development unfolds across time, and the timing of events matters.
Wow, that's incredibly comprehensive. It's truly a constant reminder that we can't look at any one factor in isolation when we're trying to understand a person's development or learning. Everything is connected.
Exactly. Understanding this theory helps us to truly see the multifaceted influences on a child's learning and development, and why a holistic approach is always best. When we consider a child's challenges or successes, Bronfenbrenner prompts us to look beyond just the individual and examine their family dynamics, their school environment, community resources, cultural context, and even historical timing. It underscores that optimal development requires a supportive tapestry of interconnected systems, making interventions potentially more comprehensive and effective when we consider these multiple layers.
Okay, so we've explored the when of development, the stages, and the how, major learning theories from behaviorism to constructivism, plus Bronfenbrenner's environmental view. Now, the million-dollar question. How does all this incredible knowledge translate into the real-world classroom? How do we make it practical? This seems to be where educational psychology comes in, acting as that crucial bridge between all this theory and actual practice.
Educational psychology is indeed that vital bridge. It is the scientific study of how individuals learn and develop specifically within educational settings. Essentially, it applies psychological principles, theories, and research methods to understand and ultimately improve teaching and learning processes and outcomes. Its importance is really immense for educators and anyone involved in learning.
So why is it so important? What does it offer practically?
Well, several key things. Firstly, it helps tremendously in understanding the learner. Educational psychology equips teachers with deep knowledge about cognitive development, like understanding Piaget's stages allows them to tailor instruction appropriately. It highlights the reality of individual differences, recognizing diverse learning styles, multiple intelligences, varied motivational levels, different cultural backgrounds, and the prior knowledge students bring. It helps teachers see the unique person in each seat. It also provides insights into what truly motivates students, whether intrinsically, like curiosity, or extrinsically, like grades, helping teachers create genuinely engaging environments that resonate. Secondly, it's vital for improving teaching strategies. It informs effective instructional design, how to structure lessons, choose appropriate methods, materials for different subjects and objectives. Should you use direct instruction, inquiry-based learning, collaborative groups? EdPsych offers guidance. It underpins effective classroom management techniques moving beyond just discipline to creating positive, proactive learning environments, maybe using behavior modification thoughtfully or fostering self-regulation skills. And it provides principles for fair, valid, and useful assessment methods, helping teachers design tests and assignments that actually measure learning effectively and can be used to inform future instruction, not just assign a grade.
Okay, understanding the learner, improving teaching. What else?
Thirdly, it aids in facilitating learning processes more effectively. Educational psychology explains how memory works, how information is encoded, stored, retrieved. Teachers can apply this knowledge to use strategies like spaced repetition, interleaving, or elaborative rehearsal to help students learn more deeply and retain information longer. It also offers models for fostering crucial higher-order skills like problem-solving and critical thinking, enabling students to analyze information, make informed decisions, and transfer knowledge to new situations, which is the ultimate goal.
Absolutely. Not just memorizing, but using knowledge.
Fourthly, it's essential for addressing learning challenges. It equips teachers with crucial knowledge about various learning disabilities and differences, dyslexia, ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and others. It provides evidence-based strategies for inclusive education, ensuring students with special needs receive appropriate accommodations, modifications, and interventions to succeed. It helps make sure no one is left behind simply because their brain is wired differently. And finally, it contributes significantly to teacher professional development. By understanding the principles of educational psychology, teachers become more reflective practitioners.
Meaning they think more deeply about their own teaching.
Yes, they can critically evaluate their own teaching methods, analyze why something worked or didn't work, adapt to new research findings, and continuously improve their pedagogical skills based on evidence, rather than just relying on intuition, tradition, or what they experienced as students themselves.
So educational psychology really allows teachers to move beyond just intuition or what feels right, to using evidence-based strategies, ensuring they're meeting every learner where they are as effectively as possible. It's about being effective, not just well-meaning.
Precisely. It professionalizes teaching by grounding it in the science of learning and development.
Now, sometimes, even with the best teaching strategies grounded in educational psychology, the learning journey has significant bumps. Not everyone learns in the same way or at the same pace. Our sources talk about learning difficulties. What exactly are these, and why is it so important to understand that they are not a reflection of effort or intelligence? That seems like a critical point.
It's absolutely critical, and framing it correctly is key. Learning difficulties or learning disabilities. The terms are often used interchangeably, though nuances exist, will refer generally to neurological, cognitive, or sometimes emotional conditions that inherently hinder the learning process in specific areas, despite the individual often having normal or even above average overall intelligence.
So someone can be really smart overall, but struggle immensely with reading, for example.
Exactly. That's often the case with dyslexia. It's absolutely crucial to understand these difficulties are not a choice, not a reflection of laziness or lack of effort, and not a sign of low intelligence. It's about how the brain is wired, making certain types of processing or learning tasks inherently more challenging for that individual.
What causes them? Is it genetic, environmental?
The main causes are often multifaceted. There can be genetic or neurological factors, differences in brain structure or function. Environmental influences can also play a role, sometimes exacerbating underlying vulnerabilities. Emotional or social challenges can interfere with learning too. And sometimes limitations within educational systems that don't adequately identify or adapt to diverse needs can contribute to the difficulties experienced. It's usually a complex interplay.
Let's highlight some of the specific challenges that our sources mention, as these are common terms people hear, but perhaps don't always fully understand the specifics of. Dyslexia, for instance.
Right. Dyslexia is probably the most well-known. It's characterized by significant difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition, poor spelling, and decoding abilities sounding out unfamiliar words. These challenges typically stem from a deficit in the phonological component of language, which is essentially the ability to hear, identify, and manipulate the individual sounds within spoken words.
So it's really about language sounds, not seeing letters backwards. That's a common
It's
misconception.
a very common misconception, yeah. While some might confuse letters like B and D visually, the core issue is usually processing the sound structure of language. It makes mapping sounds to letters difficult. Then there's autism spectrum disorder, ASD, which is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's characterized by differences in social communication and interaction and often includes restricted interests and repetitive behaviors. This can impact learning and classroom interactions significantly.
And ASD now includes what used to be called Asperger's syndrome.
Yes, Asperger's syndrome was considered a milder form, often with strong verbal skills, but significant social challenges and intense interests. Now, it typically falls under the umbrella of ASD, often described as level 1, requiring support. Individuals might have difficulty with nonverbal cues, reciprocal conversation, or understanding social nuances, but can also have exceptional abilities in specific areas. We also have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. This involves persistent patterns of inattention and hyperactivity and impulsivity that interfere with functioning or development.
Not being able to sit still or constantly
Right.
losing focus.
Exactly. A child with ADHD might struggle immensely to focus on even a relatively short 10-minute task, be constantly fidgeting or moving, interrupt others frequently, or act without thinking through consequences. Again, this is understood as a difference in brain function, particularly affecting executive functions like attention control and inhibition, not a choice or bad behavior. Our sources also mention others like Down syndrome, a genetic condition causing intellectual disability and developmental delays, requiring specific supports, and cerebral palsy, primarily a motor disability affecting muscle tone and movement, which can impact learning and participation due to physical challenges, though cognitive abilities vary widely.
It sounds like for all of these, identifying them early and providing the right support is absolutely crucial. Catching these things as soon as possible seems like the most important first step.
Absolutely paramount. Early identification and appropriate evidence-based intervention are critical to reducing the long-term challenges and dramatically increasing academic, social, and emotional success for individuals with learning difficulties. Providing support early helps scaffold their learning, builds compensatory strategies, boosts self-esteem, and often allows them to thrive alongside their peers. Key strategies across the board often include individualized education programs, IEPs, or similar personalized plans, often legally mandated, that outline specific goals, services, and accommodations tailored to the student's unique needs. Assistive technology, AT, using tools like text-to-speech software, audiobooks, graphic organizers, speech-to-text, or specialized calculators can bypass specific learning barriers and level the playing field. Adaptive teaching or differentiated instruction. Teachers modifying their instruction, activities, materials, and assessments to match the student's unique learning style, pace, and capabilities. Positive reinforcement and strength-based approaches. Consistently encouraging effort, celebrating successes, even small ones, and focusing on the student's strengths to build confidence and motivation. inclusive education, creating a supportive, welcoming classroom and school environment where all learners feel valued, respected, belong, and have access to appropriate support within the general education setting as much as possible.
That makes sense. It's about adapting the environment and tools to the learner, not just expecting the learner to fit a rigid system. Now, let's dig into this a bit more. What are some of the most effective practical ways for teachers to support students with specific conditions, like ASD or dyslexia, in the classroom? According to our sources, what does that support actually look like?
Okay, for autism spectrum disorder, ASD, the core insight from research and practice is that predictability, clear structure, and explicit communication are often like a calming balm in what can feel like a confusing world. A strengths-based and individualized support plan is highly recommended. The key principles usually involve structure and predictability, using visual schedules so the student knows what's coming next, maintaining consistent classroom routines, and providing very clear, explicit, concrete expectations for tasks and behavior. Minimizing surprises helps reduce anxiety. Social communication support. Directly teaching social skills, perhaps using social stories, short narratives describing social situations and appropriate responses. Fostering peer understanding and support can also be huge. And providing safe, designated, quiet spaces for a child to retreat to if they become overwhelmed by sensory input, like noise or lights or social demands, is often critical for regulation. Sensory accommodations. Being aware of potential sensory sensitivities to light, sound, touch, etc., identifying triggers and modifying the environment where possible, maybe allowing noise-canceling headphones during certain tasks or offering sensory breaks, leveraging strengths, actively incorporating their special interests into lessons whenever possible to boost engagement, focusing on their unique strengths, which might be incredible attention to detail, logical thinking, or deep knowledge in a specific area, helps build confidence and shows you value what they can do.
So it's really about understanding their unique profile and adapting the environment accordingly while focusing on strengths. What about for dyslexia?
For dyslexia, the crucial takeaway is that reading and spelling won't typically develop effectively through standard instruction alone. They require specific, structured, and often multisensory approaches. A differentiated, multi-tiered, and empowering approach is key. The core principles are tiered intervention system, using universal screening early on to identify students at risk, followed by providing increasingly intensive, explicit, and systematic interventions, often delivered by specialists trained in evidence-based methods like Orton-Gillingham or similar structured literacy approaches. Multisensory structured literacy, this is vital. Engaging multiple senses, sight, sound, touch, movement simultaneously when teaching reading and spelling helps build stronger neural pathways. This includes very explicit, systematic instruction in phonics, sound-letter connections, phonological awareness, hearing sounds and words, syllable types, morphology, word parts, etc. Think tracing letters in sand while saying the sound, using manipulatives. Strategic use of assistive technology. Don't just allow, but actively encourage and integrate tools like text-to-speech software, so they can listen to text, audiobooks, spell checkers, word prediction software, and perhaps specialized fonts designed for dyslexia. These are not cheating. They are essential tools for accessing information and expressing knowledge, bypassing the decoding barrier. Focus on strengths and building confidence. Dyslexia often affects only specific aspects of learning. It's crucial to nurture other areas where the child excels, maybe in creativity, problem solving, spatial reasoning, sports, or oral communication, to build their overall confidence and self-esteem, which can take a hit from academic struggles.
So again, specific strategies tailored to the neurological difference, plus leveraging technology and focusing on strengths. And for ADHD in the classroom, what helps there?
For ADHD, the ultimate goal is usually to create a highly structured, predictable, and supportive environment that minimizes distractions and maximizes engagement and on-task behavior. Key strategies often involve structure and routine, having a predictable classroom setup, clear visual schedules, consistent routines for transitions and activities. Knowing what to expect reduces cognitive load. Clear instructions and task management, breaking down large assignments or complex tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. Giving clear, concise, often multimodal, spoken and written instructions. Providing frequent check-ins and prompts. Managing attention and energy. Seating students strategically to minimize distractions, for example, near the teacher, away from windows. Incorporating planned opportunities for movement or short breaks. Using timers or visual aids to help with focus. Positive reinforcement and consequences. Consistently using positive reinforcement, praise, rewards, privileges for desired behaviors like style on task, completing work, or participating appropriately. Having clear, consistent, and immediate consequences for off-task behavior is also important, but the emphasis should be on the positive. Empathy and communication. Understanding that the behaviors associated with ADHD are symptoms of a neurodevelopmental difference, not willful misbehavior or laziness. Maintaining regular communication with parents, guardians, and any relevant support staff is crucial for consistency.
Okay, we've talked about supporting learners with difficulties. But on the other side of the spectrum, educational psychology also informs how we support gifted learners. They also have unique needs that, if not met, can lead to problems like disengagement or underachievement, right? How do we define them and how do we support them effectively?
That's exactly right. Gifted learners also require differentiated support to reach their full potential. They are generally defined as individuals possessing high intellectual ability, perhaps exceptional creativity, strong problem-solving skills, rapid learning capacity, and often a heightened curiosity or intensity, sometimes coupled with sensitivity to social or moral issues. Their characteristics might include advanced vocabulary and complex thinking for their age, an ability to grasp abstract concepts quickly, a strong desire for depth and understanding, high levels of curiosity, and sometimes leadership potential. They might learn things much faster than their peers.
So just giving them more of the same work isn't usually the answer.
Definitely not. More worksheets on stuff they've already mastered is often demotivating. To nurture their exceptional potential, specific educational strategies are crucial because without appropriate challenge, they can become bored, disengaged, frustrated, or even develop behavioral issues or underachieve relative to their potential. The key is providing appropriate depth, complexity, and pace. Enrichment programs. Providing deeper, broader, and more complex learning experiences that go beyond the standard curriculum, either within the regular classroom, for example, more challenging assignments, independent research, or through specialized pull-out programs or clubs. Accelerated learning, allowing them to progress through content at a faster pace that matches their learning speed. This might involve subject acceleration, for example, taking math with an older grade, or even grade skipping in some cases when appropriate socially and emotionally. Independent study, project-based learning, fostering self-directed inquiry by allowing them to explore topics of their own interest and depth, developing research skills, creativity, and autonomy. Mentoring, connecting gifted students with experts, older students, or professionals in their fields of interest who can provide advanced guidance, real-world perspectives, and inspiration. Curriculum compacting flexible curriculum, assessing what students already know and allowing them to skip mastered content to work on more challenging material. Adapting the curriculum to their unique pace, interests, and preferred learning styles, moving beyond a one-size-fits-all approach.
So the core insight here is that giftedness isn't just about being smart and therefore needing no help. It's about having unique learning needs for greater depth and challenge that, if unmet, can lead to frustration and underachievement, just like any other learner whose needs aren't appropriately addressed.
Precisely. It's about providing the right level of challenge and opportunity for everyone to keep growing, no matter their starting point or learning profile. Equity in education means giving each student what they need to thrive. And for gifted learners, that often means more complexity and depth.
Okay, let's try to tie all these threads together now. We've explored the stages of human development, particularly early childhood and adolescence. We've unpacked major learning theories, behaviorism, cognitivism, humanism, constructivism, and Bronfenbrenner's ecological view. We've talked about supporting learners with difficulties and gifted learners. How do skilled teachers actually use all these powerful, sometimes seemingly conflicting theories in the dynamic reality of the classroom to create an effective learning environment? Especially thinking about adolescents, with their unique developmental stage, their search for identity, their developing reasoning, and their heightened social awareness. How does it all come together in practice?
That's the key question, isn't it? And the answer is that it's rarely about rigidly adhering to just one theory exclusively. The most effective teaching practices are often blended or hybrid, strategically leveraging the strengths of different theories depending on the learning goal, the context, and the students themselves. It's about having a diverse toolbox. For example, for a teacher working with adolescents, behaviorism can still be incredibly useful for establishing clear classroom expectations, routines, and managing specific behaviors. Positive reinforcement for effort, participation, or following procedures can help create an orderly environment conducive to learning. Structured drills might still be appropriate for mastering foundational skills or vocabulary in some subjects. Cognitivism. This is paramount for promoting higher order thinking. Teachers use cognitive principles when they explicitly teach problem-solving strategies, critical thinking skills, metacognitive techniques like planning and self-monitoring, and effective memory strategies like spaced practice or concept mapping. Designing activities that challenge students' thinking and encourage insight, like Wertheimer suggested, falls here. It's about teaching them how to think and learn effectively. Humanism. This approach is fundamental for fostering intrinsic motivation, creating a positive and supportive student-teacher relationship, and cultivating a growth-oriented classroom climate where students feel safe to take risks and make mistakes. For adolescents, this is crucial for supporting their developing identity and their growing need for autonomy. Giving them meaningful choices, connecting learning to their lives, showing empathy, and respecting them as individuals taps into that self-actualization drive Maslow and Rogers talked about. Constructivism. Both Piaget's individual and Vygotsky's social constructivism strongly influence modern pedagogy. This encourages collaborative learning, group work, peer tutoring discussions, the strategic use of scaffolding by the teacher to support students in challenging tasks, Vygotsky's ZPD, and hands-on inquiry-based projects where students actively construct their understanding. These methods are especially effective for developing deep, meaningful understanding and transferable skills, not just surface memorization.
So it's really about orchestrating these different approaches, using behaviorism for structure, cognitivism for thinking skills, humanism for motivation and well-being, and constructivism for deep understanding and collaboration.
Exactly. A skillful teacher blends these, adapting their approach based on the specific learning objectives and the needs of their students at that moment.
That makes sense. It's a complex dance. But how do schools specifically manage classrooms and develop positive relationships, particularly given adolescence stage of moral development moving towards conventional or even post-conventional reasoning and that powerful influence of social context and peers we discussed earlier? How do the theories inform that aspect?
Our sources suggest moving beyond simple rule enforcement towards a more holistic and proactive approach that aims to truly foster responsible, ethical behavior, and positive social interactions. This draws on several theoretical perspectives. Firstly, considering Kohlberg's moral development, the goal should be to support adolescents in moving towards conventional and potentially post-conventional levels of reasoning. This means helping them understand the rationale behind rules, not just obeying them blindly, discussing ethical dilemmas, considering different perspectives, and encouraging the development of ethical frameworks based on principles like justice, fairness, and human rights. Classroom discussions, debates, and analysis of real-world issues can facilitate this. Secondly, many schools are increasingly adopting restorative practices. Instead of purely punitive measures for misbehavior, like suspension, which behaviorism might focus on, the focus shifts to repairing the harm caused, fostering dialogue between those affected, understanding the impact of actions, and collaboratively finding solutions. This draws on social and humanistic principles, teaching responsibility, empathy, conflict resolution, and helping to build a stronger, more connected school community. Thirdly, implementing a comprehensive social-emotional learning SEL curriculum is vital, drawing from humanistic and cognitive psychology, explicitly teaching skills like self-awareness, understanding one's emotions, self-management, regulating emotions and behavior, social awareness, empathy, perspective-taking, relationship skills, communication, cooperation, conflict resolution, and responsible decision-making equips students with the tools they need to navigate social situations effectively, manage impulses, build positive relationships, and make ethical choices, all crucial during adolescence. Finally, fostering a more democratic classroom environment inspired by constructivist and humanistic ideas can be very effective. Involving students appropriately for their age in co-creating classroom rules, discussing consequences, and having a voice in classroom decisions fosters a sense of ownership, mutual respect, and critical thinking about fairness and community responsibility. When students feel heard and valued, they are more likely to buy into the classroom culture positively. So if I had to give my best suggestion, particularly for adolescents based on these theories, I'd say a primarily humanistic approach, strongly integrated with cognitive and social constructivist elements, seems most suitable. This combination respects their growing autonomy, fosters intrinsic motivation, promotes self-actualization and personal growth, develops independence and responsibility, actively supports their complex social-emotional development, and encourages the creativity and higher-order thinking they are becoming capable of. While behaviorist principles can be used judiciously as tools for specific behavioral management or reinforcing foundational skills, they really shouldn't define the primary educational strategy for adolescents, given their developing capacity for abstract thought, self-reflection, and identity formation. We need approaches that engage their whole selves.
This has been a truly comprehensive breakdown, weaving together so many strands. But if there's one core message listeners should carry forward from our conversation today about understanding the learner through all these lenses, what would it be?
I think the core message is that teaching, parenting, mentoring, any interaction aimed at fostering growth is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. Understanding these developmental stages, the great debates that frame them, the diverse learning theories, and the ecological contexts empowers anyone involved with developing humans to adapt their strategies, provide truly tailored support, and create genuinely inclusive environments where diverse needs are met. It helps us understand, fundamentally, that every single person is a unique individual on a multifaceted developmental journey, influenced by a complex myriad of factors. And therefore, every person deserves an approach that respects their individual growth trajectory and nurtures their unique potential. Hashtag #OutRepanic.
What an incredible deep dive,
Yeah.
seriously, into the very blueprint of how we grow, learn, and become who we are. From those foundational debates like nature versus nurture, through the intricate stages of life and exploring all those diverse theories explaining how our minds work, it's just crystal clear that understanding this complexity is absolutely key to unlocking potential in every single individual. It really feels like learning the secret language of human growth.
Indeed. It's fascinating, isn't it? We've seen how a single child's journey, your journey, is shaped by everything from their genetic code to their family, their friendships, their culture, the time they live in, and how theories from Skinner's reinforcement providing structure, to Vygotsky's scaffolding offering support, to Rogers' empathy building connection all offer profound practical insights for educators, parents, anyone really. The ultimate goal always is to try and create environments where all learners, with all their unique profiles, strengths, and challenges, can truly thrive and reach their full potential.
And it's important to remember this isn't just knowledge for teachers or psychologists. This understanding applies to anyone who interacts with developing humans, parents, mentors, coaches, managers, policymakers, or simply anyone curious about the astonishing process of how we become who we are and how we continue to learn and adapt throughout our entire lives. It gives you a new lens, a new framework to view every interaction.
Exactly. It changes how you see things. So, as you, our listener, reflect on this deep dive today, consider this provocative thought. If every single interaction we have, every lesson we teach or learn, every environment we create or inhabit plays a profound part in shaping an individual's development and learning, what small intentional changes can you make, starting today, in your own daily interactions at home, at work, in your community, to better foster growth, understanding, connection, and well-being in the people around you?
That's a powerful question to ponder, and one that really highlights our own role, our own potential impact in this incredible ongoing process of human development. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring the incredible world and the incredible people around you.